I finally felt bliss for the first time. I felt like I was getting back to my old self again. Before this, I was in a depression. I would send the boys down to play, and I would sit and draw house plans and just zone out. I was like in this place where you can't feel anything. I was just in this artistic place, and I would just drew up these house plans. And so I felt this bliss and looked down at the boys and my husband. All of a sudden, I'm in 1966. This is 1986, and like that, I'm in 1966. So there again, as I'm a grandma, I'm looking back trying to make sense of this stuff because I know it's real. I mean, tried to convince myself it wasn't, that it was trying to make excuses for so many decades. And I realize now, things that happened during the drowning have stayed with me. And I had left my body again, but this time I went back in time. Well, if you think about the near-death experience with the twins, we went into the future. But this was going in the past. And I think on the other side, we can do that. It's not like here, we got to continue on through the calendar. But on the other side, it's not like that. We can go back in the past. We can have a memory come surface, teach us something, or we can go up in the future. We can be clear up in heaven, then suddenly be down to earth looking in on someone. And so I realize now I understand all these things about death, that the way it is on the other side, but it took me a long time to come to these conclusions because there was no other conclusions to come to after I searched and tried to understand this, because I had to come to some kind of conclusion with these memories. So that made absolutely no sense. And I thought, oh gosh. So then Jeff and I are driving down. He's driving. I'm sitting in the passenger up front. We're going through Gallipolis, which is about 40 minutes from our home, and 3 little boys in the back seat. And all of a sudden, as we're headed out of town, I said, pull over. And he's like, what? I said, pull over. And I said, I have to go in that house right there. And I don't know who lives there, but I have to go in that house. And I get out of the car, and I'm thinking, I'm going to go knock on this door, and those people will think I'm crazy, but I have to go to this house. I was led. I had to go. There was no voice. It was hit me right now, and there was no stopping me. And I thought, when somebody comes to the door, I'm going to have to say, excuse me, I must have the wrong house. But I had to go to that door. There was no stopping going that door. And this never happened before or since. It was just that strong. It wasn't just being led. It was like immediate right now. So I knocked on the door, and of all people, my ex-sister-in-law opens the door. She happened to be babysitting, and this was her sister's house she was renting. I didn't know that. And I was like, well, hi. And she's, oh, come on in. What are you doing here? And I said, what are you doing? And she said, I'm babysitting. I said, well, who are you babysitting? She says, my nephew. I said, well, where is he? Oh, he's in the bedroom playing. I went immediately into the bedroom, and he's in there choking on Easter basket grass. And, he's not breathing. And so I'm pulling that out, and then he starts squirming. I let him down. I see he's okay, and he takes off back running to his bedroom. And to this day, she'll say, if you hadn't been there, he would have died. She said, I wouldn't have known what to do. So I went and got in the car, and we're headed home, and I tell Jeff what happened, and there's just silence. Every now and then we'll look at each other, and the unspoken words between us is, what's going on? First the little boy in the ditch, now this. It was that feeling led. I got to go there. Some time passes because now we've built the basement in the property. We moved out there and we built a deck, and we put the boys down for a nap. So I'm guessing maybe a year after I lost the twins. And I was like, start to turn on the radio, which I always did. We go sunbathe on the deck. I thought, I want the radio off today for a change. We went and left it off and went and sat in a lounge chair, and it was no time. And I said, did you hear that? And he said, I didn't hear anything. And I didn't really either. It was a very slight, just a scuff that you would not normally pay attention, but it was like, what's going on? I said, well, I'm going to go see that was. He said, well, I'll go with you. So we walked, and I look over, and there is a car has hit a tree. It has been coming towards our house and swerved over, and had hit a tree head on. And there's 2 guys that were ejected from the back are down under this huge cliff up from our house. And the 2 in the front seat, they're resting their heads on the dash. Their necks are broke. And they're not saying, it's perfectly quiet. You don't hear anything. Jeff told me, he says, run down, call the squad, and bring boards to brace the 2 in the front, their necks. And so I went down, told the squad, I said, send a life flight. I thought, well, okay, how did I hear that? Are all these things coincidences, or, and I thought, or did something happen because of the near-death experience? Because after the 25-year-old near-death experience, it seemed like I suddenly started being led to save lives. Well, after the drowning, I was led, and got this communication from the flower, and, I left my body at 16 during rape. Our oldest son was in the war in Afghanistan. And every time the song Simple Man came on, I always stopped and prayed when I heard that for him. And I always said the same kind of prayer, that I prayed to God that my son would at least live long enough in life that he would know that kind of love when you get married, when you have children, the love of a child. I prayed that he would get to know that, because I was so scared that he would die over there as a young man and not have married or had children. And after my son was injured and returned home, and he was okay, but he told me a couple years after he was home, they had a couple kids, and he said, he didn't talk too many stories about the war, but one day he says, Mom, I want to tell you something. And they were all riding the back of a truck. They were all talking and loud, and Simple Man came on the radio. And because that song came on, everybody got quiet to hear that song. And because they're quiet, they heard they were about to be ambushed. And that gave them a heads up to prepare, and not a single one of them was injured. He said every other ambush just like this did not end well for our side, but this ended well for our side, because they had that moment to be prepared. He said if that song hadn't come on, they got quiet, it would have been bad. I think so many things probably happened that we don't even realize. Divine intervention. Once I became a grandma and the kids are all grown and have their own kids, and I was traveling with my husband in the camper because I remarried. I got divorced after 16 years of marriage. We adopted 9 children, and so I was busy with, I ended up getting my bachelor's degree and I worked at child protection for quite a while, and I worked as a drug counselor and different things, emergency room, mental hospital and stuff, women's prison, and so I was busy. But once the kids were gone, I got to go with my husband, travels for work. And so I had all this time in this camper. I thought, I've always been kind of curious about near-death experiences. And I'd read a book or two, and I'd seen some, I survived, come back. It never dawned on me that's what happened to me. I just felt really drawn in a strange way to those things. The first time I understood, and I didn't have the word near-death experience, but I understood that happened. And Oprah Winfrey was new at the time. I stopped my tracks like, what in the heck are they talking about? She had some people on there saying they never heard the word near-death experience, but they were talking about they had died and come back. And I thought they were the biggest weirdos in the world. That is the biggest lie I ever heard. How ridiculous. How stupid do they think people are? Oh my gosh. I mean, they even look like weirdos, They're not credible. Oh my gosh, I cannot believe it. And I took a step back to go in the kitchen and start dinner, and I stopped in my tracks. And I felt something in my body. I thought, why does that sound familiar? And it come back to me, and I was like, oh my God, it was real. It was real. I'm alone in my living room freaking out. And it felt like my soul and my mind was at tug of war. Like there is this boxing match for me. Who's going to win? And I was like, it couldn't have happened, but it did happen. It couldn't have. It did. And I sat Jeff down at the table, and I said, I have something I need to tell you. And I told him, and I shook all over when I told him, because when, after I come back from heaven and was in the wheelchair, when I first come back, and my hands were still on those armrests. My first thing I felt was my hearing. I could hear a nurse now talking to another nurse. Then I felt my hands on the armrests. And then I felt a warmth through my body. And something let me know, once I felt my feet on the foot pedals, I was all the way back. And once I was all the way back, and I was thinking, what the hell was that? And I thought, well, I can't tell anybody, I'll go to the psych ward. And he looked at me and he said, I know you, and I can tell by the way you're talking. He says, as strange as it sounds, he says, I know you're telling me the truth. But I was starting to open up. It was like this flower, like this rose that's all tightly closed is starting to open and bloom. And I started the PTSD from my childhood. I had been diagnosed through Social Security as disabled with PTSD because of my childhood. And I thought, I don't want this PTSD. I don't want to be, it was like somebody putting on a record and it playing over and over this crap you don't want to remember. And I don't want this. So I sat one morning from morning to night and just handwrote with a pen in these notebooks all day long, just getting this stuff out, not processing it like I never did process anything. It's just, here's my story. I would tell people, done. People look at me weird. Like, nobody talks about abuse. They don't talk about molestation. They don't talk about rape. They don't talk about getting knocked out cold. They just look at you, because most people haven't experienced those things. And so they just look at you like you're weird. And any little experience or spiritual experiences, I didn't talk about a lot because I'm getting looked at like I'm weird enough already. So I just wrote down all this stuff, the spiritual and the abuse, just real fast. And just get it out, done. Just get it away from me. The next morning I woke up and I felt just as bad. And I thought, it won. Every battle I fought, I lost. There's no such thing as justice. I'm just going to be stuck knowing the rest of my life that everything I tried in my life, I failed. And I just need to accept it. And I'm kind of like in my mind waving the white flag, like, I give up. I'm never trying nothing again. I'm just going to live my life out, not try anything. And then I saw a vision. A vision appeared, and I saw myself wading through a creek in this woods, and like I'm looking down, and it's from behind, and I'm going along, and I'm picking up these little bits of light and looking at them, and I go a little further, and I'm picking up bits of light, and all of a sudden this light, the darkness in the woods just grew to this light, and then I got thinking, I have pushed all the spiritual stuff away under the rug, just like the abuse, all the same. And I thought, to heck with the abuse, let's focus on the spiritual. This wanting to sit on Jesus' lap, this angel says, don't go yet. This angel says, you'll have love someday. And all these things start coming to me like these little bits of light and forming together like, pay attention. And I'm like, I have avoided looking at this. And it was like this black curtain moved to the left, and this light come in, and I grabbed my laptop, and I started writing my story from beginning. And I did that every day for 3 months. And I hardly stopped to eat or sleep. I was just getting my story out. And the whole time I felt like someone was standing right in front of my laptop. Like I was like telling this person, whoever it was, my story, like I was talking to someone. And I got through it. Before I couldn't do it because it was too painful. It would get gut wrenching and like get me away from this. But I stuck with it because I knew to tell my story, I had to get through the bad so they would understand the good, appreciate the good. And this story I was writing was my life. Everything everybody said they didn't want to hear. Everybody that I thought that would think it was crazy, and everybody says, shut up, don't tell that. It's a family matter. It's in the past, and we don't talk about family. All these things, I let it, like it was like this wound, and I opened it up and let it bleed out. I never felt so much pride and glee in my heart as I did while I was writing this and when I got it done. And I don't know why it gave me such bliss. And everything just started falling in place. The whole book, as I was writing it, was just falling into place. And it was like my soul was speaking instead of my mind trying to talk. I just believe we need to start understanding this stuff and tapping into it, because I believe there is a energy of wisdom around us that we can tap into, and we're completely ignoring it by not trusting it. You know, how did I remember the drowning when my family never talked about it? And 20 years later, I recall it through a vision and say, did I drown? And it happened to come after my second NDE. My husband and I, when I was at the doctor a couple years ago, I said, I have wanted to tell you something for over 30 years. And I said, do you remember when I had the dual pregnancy and I refused to go home? He's like, yeah. And so I told him briefly. And he says, I believe you. He says, I have come to believe over the years of things I have seen. He says, I believe exactly what you're talking about. And the nurse says, oh, he does too. She says, we all see it. And it was such a load off me, because I had one to tell him every time I go for an appointment. And I was scared. I think what it comes down to is sometimes I think people are afraid to have hope. And hope, if you don't have hope, you might be suicidal, you might be angry, you might not try things, you might not have courage. And it seems to me like hope is the key. I think sometimes you get hurt so much, like the point I was, I'm never trying again. You know, I had no hope at that point when I'm waving the white flag to life and saying I'm done. Because everything I've tried, I've failed, I've this and that. And then I was just given hope. And once I had hope, man, I took off. It was realizing that I had been focusing on the bad in my life and not the good, the dark and not the light. And we can do that with anything. You know, somebody could be living in a dump, but if they're happy to see the sunrise every day or the sunset, or happy to walk down and help their neighbor every day, if they've got something that gives them hope, then they're going to be happier than somebody living in a mansion that doesn't have hope, that feels that they're stuck, there's no way out, that they have to have all these things in order to be happy. They have to have a certain bank account level, a certain job level. I seen the other day where a lady, like Fox News 2 or something, committed suicide. Beautiful lady, you know, and 2 children, and knowing that, you know, she didn't have hope, whatever was going through her. And I have been at those times in my life, and I didn't have hope. I couldn't see any way out. I couldn't see things getting any better. And you know, even if you don't have hope for tomorrow, if you can find some hope for today, you know, if you're in that state, then find hope today. What do you want to do today? Is there a special meal, a movie, going outside, or talking to a friend, something you enjoy? You know, take hope in little bits and pieces. And I have found that in depression, there is beauty in depression. In depression, everybody's like, oh, I don't want to feel bad. I don't want to feel sad, or I don't. And we try everything we can to avoid and push it away. But if we surrender to the depression, we'll find that there's all kinds of wisdom and creativity, because I think God does not allow us to go through things without some sort of rescue. And it's up to us to have enough hope to find a rescue, whether a friend or something we enjoy doing. Your soul has wisdom that you can tap into if you leave your mind behind. You know, you thought this and you thought that. The problem is you're thinking and you're not feeling. You're not tapping into your feelings. You're burying them and you're pushing them away, and it's causing you depression because you're not acknowledging your soul and what your soul wants and what your soul has to say. If I get in a bad mood and I start getting grumpy, people start getting on my nerves, I turn on my Christian music. That message station, oh my gosh, it's like that. It's that quick. I'm rejoicing, I'm singing, I'm feeling God's love, and I'm happy. And I'm just in this bliss. And I'm happy again, and I can think about what I want to do today instead of I got to do this, I got to do that, I should do that, because it takes practice, I think. But if you learn, when you catch yourself in that bliss moment, something that's really making you happy, a walk in the woods or whatever it is for you, that do more of that. If that's where you're finding your bliss, do more of it. And do less of what's making you miserable. If it's making you miserable, that is not where you need to be. It's going to be hard. You're going to be punching against a wall because that's not where you're meant to go. If it feels good, that's where you're meant to go. If I get like that, I'll think, what do I want to do right now? What do I want to do today? How can I get out of work? You know, maybe I won't clean house in a month. I'm not going to put up Christmas decorations because then I got to take them down. I want to go visit his parents. I want to go visit my disabled sister. I want to go do this or that. You know, I want to go help somebody. Or I want to go just have fun with him and go see a movie. Or we walk out in the woods. We have to go out. We have woods behind. We go out there and walk, look around, and talk about stuff. If you start thinking, if this was my last day on earth and I knew it, what would I be doing? Would I be doing that? Or what would I really want to do? When you stop and think, what would I want to do if you knew this was your last day? What would you do? Would you go visit somebody? Would you call somebody that you haven't talked to? Would you speak more from your heart that day and be vulnerable and open and not talk from your ego? Or how would you act? Would you act differently if you knew this was your last day? And I think you can tap into your soul when you think like that. Instead of, I got to do this and I got to do that. And why are you doing it? Are you hoping that it'll impress somebody who you've never been able to impress in your life? You know, they're never going to be impressed. Or do you have to do these things to impress yourself? Or can you find enjoyment in something that you're just going to, you know, maybe you used to like to paint, or maybe you used to like to play guitar, or maybe you'd like to play harmonica, or is there something, you know, when you were a kid, like you really enjoyed and you've got away from? After my second NDE, you know, I've been going through my husband's, first husband, Jeff's, his Catholic church and stuff, and I started longing to go to my grandma's church that I grew up with. And Catholics don't like you to go on to other churches, you know. And so I convinced him one day to go to my grandma's church. We took the boys. I needed to hear the old hymns, Amazing Grace and Just As I Am, and all those things that when I was growing up, felt in my heart. And because Catholic is so repetition in the prayers, and I just didn't feel stuff there. And we went one time, and I felt everything I needed to. And as we're walking out, Jeff says, "Don't you ever ask me to do that again." So I look back when I listened to the Christian music that day in my bedroom when I was cleaning, how it just opened me up. And so I'm realizing that's a trigger for me into my soul. For me, it's the Christian music. Sometimes I can start crying of joy when I'm listening to it, and I just feel so much love and God's love, and that it opens me up, and I'm not thinking about stuff that might be normally upsetting, because we have a choice if we feel good or we feel bad. Go park in our kids' backyard for a month at a time and visit grandkids, and then we have to go work, and let's do something where we have more joy. Because we're not going to be here forever, and we're not going to be able to go back. I mean, I think about, since I was dead twice, it's real easy for me, I guess, to think, when you're gone, you're gone. You know, with the twins, I thought that was it. And I have a glimpse in that white space, a small glimpse of seeing people's feet busy on a sidewalk. And I'm thinking, they're all just so busy, you know, and crazy stuff, like focus on all these things. I got to do this, I got to do that, and these dress shoes and these briefcases and these suits, and they're just going. And I'm thinking, slow down, go do something fun, check out of this rat race. Because imagine if you were in this heaven and white space, as I described it a while ago, and you're in that white space, and your life's done, and what are you going to think as if you were died right today? In your mind and your thinking, because you're still you in your mind and your thinking. That's not going to change. In your mind and your thinking, are you going to think, gosh, I should have told so-and-so I loved him, or, oh, I should have thrown ball with him, or I should have went and visited that person, I should have taken care of all these things, or I should have more fun. I always liked, say, swimming or soccer or whatever it was, and I just didn't do that enough. Because I don't know about reincarnation, but we get this life in this body as this person and these people we know, and we need to just make the most of it, and without regrets, because that's my whole thing. When I do go back the next time, I'm sure it'll be for good. I'm sure there won't be another near-death experience. I want to feel job well done, that I said everything I needed to say. I had the courage to speak my truth. This was a huge thing for me, having my book published, to speak my truth. I knew people were going to come say she's crazy. They're going to come say she's a liar. They're going to come say whatever, but they always have anyway, when I was afraid to tell my truth. And this is my truth, and I imagine myself in heaven someday and thinking, my book is down there, and in any time somebody can pick up my book and maybe learn something or feel something or know something. And or even science later, when I think they finally will someday pick up on all this, and they can go back on these people that told their near-death experiences, because maybe people will get afraid to sometime, and we're all shut up. Maybe some doctor will claim, from now on we know they're not real, they're a lie, and everybody's going to shut up, like we were before. We had like gags on our mouths, so we were afraid to tell. And maybe they'll dust these books off when they find you. Who knows, But it was something I had to do. And I feel maybe that's why these stories is all like a broken record. They wouldn't leave my mind, because they were meant to be in this book. I thought I found family when I got into the NDE community. And I'm finding backbiters and jealousy of, if they see, well, you got an interview, or you get to be on an NDE panel INs, or, well, we got to start talking bad about her, because, like, as if there's only one position, like we can only have one NDE-er. There's a competition, like it's a beauty contest, like who has the most fantastic NDE, and people criticize my book because they say, well, most NDEs are beautiful and hers isn't beautiful, and I never heard of NDE like that before. And it's like, this is my NDE. I did not carbon copy after nobody. This is my memory. I'm not changing it to fit nothing. And then once somebody says, oh, it was so beautiful, and I felt it, then you all hear them the same stuff. They're like regurgitating the same line. I'm like, they're set for us what we need at the time. And I keep thinking of NDEs like Christmas presents, and we're all these kids around this Christmas tree, and God's watching us open up our NDE. And some are like, well, this is all I got. Like, well, you haven't finished opening it then, if you think it's all you got. You're just getting started. You got to start looking at the details and sitting down and remember, because I had to do that. I just remembered parts and parts, and then I would lay down and like, what else do you see? What else do you see? And I still find things like, I never noticed that before, or I never made that connection before. I never thought about that. Now I, like with the visions, I wasn't connecting how the visions was teaching me something, and the visions was in everything. It's open up and give me knowledge. Another thing that happened is when, after the kidnap and rape, I was put in a group home for bad kids. It was called the Open Door in Marietta. And I was there, I don't know how many weeks, but when I returned to school, I thought everybody knew about the rape. I thought everybody was judging me. And I was always the type kid that hung out the smoking area instead of eating. And I would smoke or drink what anybody passed me. But one day something just kind of hit me. And I thought, I think I'm going to go get a hot meal in the cafeteria today instead of smoking my lunch. I'm going to do something to help me instead of hurt me. As I started to walk to the door, I saw Jim. And he's called Jimmy then. And I thought, who is that? And why am I watching him? He's not my type. If you think of Happy Days, he's more the Potsy instead of the Fonz. I was always after the Fonz guy. And so I went and got my plate, and I'm eating, and I'm watching him. And something audible told me, telepathic but audible, this is what goodness looks like. That I was to observe and not approach him. And I did that for a while. I would just watch him, and I'd see so many guys would come up and shake his hand, talk to him, like tell him something, he'd just listen, and then they'd shake his hand or pat him on the back, like they really appreciated his friendship. And I didn't want to approach him because I was a bad girl. He was a good boy, and I didn't want to be a bad influence on something. And I felt I was showing goodness. I thought, well, maybe I'm not such a bad kid after all, because I had myself pegged as the worst person in the world. And because of what happened to me, and because my parents hated me, I took that on as my fault. There's something bad about me, and that's why I didn't want anybody to know my secret, because it was embarrassing that my family treated me like that. Something told me that Jim and I would be together someday, but I had to go become a better person first. I heard, kind of off to the side, follow God like a leaf follows the wind. Trust. All my job was to trust. And I thought, are you crazy? What are you doing? Walking in a bar, looking for a husband. Like, how Christian is this? This can't be from God. This is ridiculous. I thought, I'm going to turn around and go back. And I heard a voice say, don't look left, don't look right, look straight ahead. So I opened up that door. I thought, what do I got to lose? 2 more steps, opened the door, and I looked, and there was the back of his head. I went straight in. I didn't look nowhere else and sat beside him. I did not realize until after we were dating a couple months, that was the guy I had a crush on. That spirit told me, this is what goodness looks like. You have to go become a better person first, and we'd be together. I hear a lot nowadays about meditation, and I don't like it. I think meditation is focusing on yourself and not God. When you take God out of the equation, I don't know what's left there. I cannot imagine meditating and not trying to connect with God. I know people that don't believe in Christianity, and they talk a lot about meditation. They say, get in touch with Source. I'm like, God? No, Source. What are you talking about? And I don't trust a lot of the New Age stuff. And me being an NDE, I've gotten into this NDE community, and I am shocked here lately. And I'm finding out, oh, they're not Christian. What are you talking about? They're not Christian. I assumed. We're talking about NDEs. I'm talking about God and Jesus. Some of them don't want you to use the words God and Jesus. Well, then I'm not in this. I have learned to listen to my instincts and pay attention when I used to bury them. And that was a huge thing for me once I stopped denying those things I'm picking up, like you're picking up. Instead of denying them, I need to focus more on them, look at them more closely instead of pushing them away. Because you're right. Know that you're right in your instincts. Don't second guess yourself. Oh, no, you're probably right. I think we are living in a very dangerous time right now. I think that I feel like we're like good and evil are button heads. I feel like a lot of people are just out for themselves, their agenda, their politics. And the winning is all that matters, and gaining. And then you have people that are still trying to be good people, are trying to be quiet and not cause waves with the people that are causing huge waves. And there's seems to be a big push to get Christianity out in a sneaky way. And I think some of this new age is a sneaky way. And a lot of it is from the politics. I think there's more underneath all this Democrat and Republican stuff, meets the eye, that I'm not aware of, that I'm not smart enough to know about and don't want to be. But I feel it very strongly that it just feels like an evil force has been let loose. It feels like, to me, that something has been let loose, that some kind of evil force has been let loose to attack what good is left here. That's just a feeling I have. I can't say to you that I completely understand it. It's just a very strong feeling when I see people attacking each other so viciously and not letting, like they sink their teeth in and don't let go and don't care what, they just hope that they're hurting somebody. They hope they're hurting and they want to hurt them more and just won't let go. They say nothing joins people together like hate does. And I have seen it a lot since I was little. Whether it's my family getting together, we're going to pick on this one. Kids at school, we're going to get together, pick on this one. High school, families, extended families, co-workers. Now in this NDE community, there's so many good people afraid to say anything and are dropping out because they can see what's happening. It's not just me. It's a lot of people are talking about it quietly because some of the others are being very loud and vocal and they see what's being done to me and they're afraid to speak up because look what's happening to her for speaking up. Because I spoke up against abortion because there's a spiritual person advocating abortion as spiritual, and I spoke up and said, oh no you don't. And the repercussions has been going on about 3 months now. And they're just getting more vicious and vicious. And everybody's watching it. Everybody in the NDE community sees it. Everybody knows what's going on. But we can't talk about it openly. So because some of this stuff's getting to be a big business. And money is talking. And there's people leaving it because of that. And the other that I just talked about. So it's something that people don't see. And a lot of us do. And it's a very hard thing to put into words and a very hard thing to fight. But it feels like there's a lot of people that do not want you to say God and Jesus in your NDE. And if you do, they don't want to talk to you. And there's a lot of people that are therefore saying the source or other things so they can sell more books because God and Jesus doesn't sell. And because, Hollywood may not want that. And I don't know how to get across to people that if you're a Christian, now is more time than ever to speak up about your faith, to talk about your own miracles, to get involved with Christian communities that you feel comfortable with, or like Sundays, we just go see who we can help. We don't, instead of going to church, we go see who we can help. Do something to teach your children, grandchildren. I just worry that in my lifetime, we will be having something that tells us you are not allowed to be Christian. I think in my lifetime we may get to that point where people are going to be afraid. They're going to close down churches. And and they're going to take, try to take, not say Merry Christmas, but say Happy Holidays, and all these other things. Somebody put up a statue of some demon or something just to prove they could, because I think they got down a statue of Christ or something, a cross, or all these things with these legal cases that are going on, mocking the funerals of the fallen soldiers. And there's a huge force that nobody really knows who's all behind this. But I think they're trying to destroy our country, because I think the rock of our country is our faith and our family, and I think there is a force trying to destroy both. God has our back, that there's nothing that He can't fix. When you think something is impossible, because a lot of times I have prayed and I thought, I know this is impossible. I know that there is no way that this is going to happen or that, or by gosh, it does. And until you give up your ego and start trusting that God is real and heaven is real and our soul is real, and let go of your mind and your thinking that's faulty, and give over into how you feel and how other people feel. Because it's just like standing at a checkout line. Are you gonna look at that lady in the eyes? Are you doing okay? How you feeling? You look tired. I was here first, get out of the way. I don't do a price check on this. I don't like the price. We have always two choices a way to be. We can be loving or we can be hateful. And I am not above being hateful. None of us are. We all can get a negative, like sometimes I think, oh my gosh, I'm hearing my mother's voice. I'm acting like my mother right now. That's not who I want to be. We all have choices every moment, and none of us is perfect, but we can always try to be.